My name is Elias. I am Amish. I have shaved every working morning of my life, and the blade in my razor right now is over a year old, not sitting forgotten in a drawer. Shaving me clean, every single morning, for over a year, while most men in this country throw a blade away before the first month is out. In this video, I will show you exactly why a blade turns rough, the 2 habits that stop it completely, and 4 small additions on top of those that stretch it even further still. Most of what you need is already sitting in your own house. Here is what is actually happening. You shave with a blade for a week or 2. The glide starts to catch. You throw it out and open a fresh one, and the blade you just threw away still had months of shaving left in it. Add up what that costs. $3 or $4 a cartridge, replaced every 2 weeks, comes to close to $80 a year. 2 shavers in one house, and you are past $150. All of that for a piece of steel that costs the maker only a few pennies to produce. Nobody ever taught you to question any of it either. Your father did not question it, and his father did not before him. Same as most men in this country for 3 generations running, all of them calling it normal, simply because nobody around them ever stopped to ask if it was true. Picture every blade you have thrown away over the past 10 years lined up in a row across your own kitchen counter, one after another, most of them barely touched at all, and that row would run the length of the counter and then some, every single one of them still carrying good steel that is sitting in a landfill now instead of in your razor. Here is why it happens. Hair is soft, and cutting it wears down an edge far less than most men assume. A large part of what actually dulls a blade early is the damp air in your bathroom after you shave. The edge on a modern blade is ground down thinner than a hair, and steel that thin rusts and folds over easily once it sits wet, the same way a good kitchen knife left wet overnight gets a faint film on the edge by morning. Much of the roughness you feel is not the blade wearing out from your face. It is the blade rusting between one shave and the next. Think of it this way. A thin wire rusts through in a single season, while a heavy iron gate can stand in the weather for years before it fails. There is simply less steel there to protect. The edge on your razor is ground down to that same fragile thinness, so it takes almost nothing at all. A little humidity, a few hours of standing water to start the same damage. Go look at your own blade right now. Run your thumb across the edge, careful, and look closely. A rough, uneven edge points to rust. A smooth, evenly worn edge would point to plain wear. With most razor blades thrown out early, it is rust doing the greater share of the damage. Once you see that plainly, the fix is not complicated at all. There are only 2 things worth doing here, and if you take nothing else from this whole video, take these 2. Straighten that fine edge back true before the damp ever gets the chance to ruin it, and keep the blade dry afterward so the damp never gets that chance in the first place. Everything else I show you past this point is worth adding, and it will stretch a blade further still, but these 2 habits are the ones carrying the real weight. There is not much money in a scrap of denim and a bottle of oil you already own, which is exactly why nobody teaches you this. A cartridge maker profits every single time you throw one away too soon. Walk into any drugstore and count how much shelf space goes to replacement cartridges compared to anything meant to help you keep the one you already own. My community never depended on that kind of industry to begin with, and a habit like this is exactly why. Quick word before I show you exactly how we put this to work. A lot of the old methods my family uses never fit into a single video. That is what the book is for. A new edition is coming soon, updated and expanded, and it will be available only here on this channel. The old edition was $47. This one will be $39. If you want it, it will be there. Here's the first habit, and you can start it tonight. My grandfather kept one straight razor his whole life. The same blade from the time he was a young man until the year he died, in the farmhouse where I still live, the one he built with his own 2 hands. He never had a cartridge to throw away. He had that one blade and a strip of leather hanging by the washstand, and he ran it backward along that leather every single morning before he even poured his coffee. You do not need leather. An old pair of jeans works the same way. Lay them flat across a hard table, the thigh section pulled tight with no wrinkles beneath where the blade will pass. Hold the razor with the blade facing away from you, nearly flat against the denim, and draw it backward up the fabric with a light, even pressure, spine leading the whole way and the edge trailing behind it, never once digging in. 20 strokes like that on one face, and then flip the razor over and give the other face 20 more. One rule matters above all the rest here, so listen close. Backward only, spine leading every single stroke, and never forward into the cloth, or you will cut the threads and roll that fine edge over the wrong way entirely. You should feel nothing more than a faint, even drag against the denim, never a scrape or a catch, and if you find loose threads in the fabric afterward, you dug the edge in somewhere along the way. Just lighten your hand and try it again. Half a minute and you have done more for that blade than most men do in a year. Here is the second habit. After you rinse the razor, do not leave it sitting on the wet rim of the sink or in the shower where water pools. That is the worst place in your house for a piece of fine steel. Shake it hard, 5 or 6 times, blade pointed down to throw off whatever standing water is still clinging to it, and then dry it with a towel, pressing gently along the head rather than wiping across the edge itself. Store it somewhere with open air moving around it after that. A small cup up on a shelf, a hook on the wall, anywhere at all, so long as it is not lying flat against something damp. Do that every time, and rust never gets its foothold. Beyond those two, 4 more small habits stretch a blade even further. Add them one at a time, in any order you like. 1. Modern cartridges carry a thin colored strip that helps the razor glide, and that strip is not steel, so it wears away on its own, no matter how well you strop, simply because there is nothing there to straighten. When it goes, the shave feels rough, even though the blade underneath is still perfectly true. A drop of plain food-grade mineral oil is all it takes to fix that, the same kind sold cheaply for chapped hands, and you simply rub 1 small drop across the blade with your fingertip once you have stropped and dried it. You will not need a fresh drop every single morning either. Once the glide fades again, usually every few days, a single drop brings it right back, and 1 small bottle, $3, will see you through most of a year. 2. If your water runs hard, it leaves the same mineral scale on your blade that it leaves on a shower head or the inside of a kettle, so look there first and see if you recognize that same chalky white buildup. If you do, this one is for you. Once a week, right after your usual stropping, drop the blade into a small cup of plain white vinegar for about 30 seconds. Then rinse it and dry it the same as always. If your water runs soft, you can leave this one out entirely. 3. Keep 2 cartridges in rotation instead of 1. Shave with the first for a full week, then let it rest completely dry in its own cup while you shave with the second the next week. Mark the 2 cups somehow, so you never confuse which blade is resting and which is due. A blade given a full week to dry sheds moisture far better than one asked to perform again the very next morning. This is the one habit my grandfather never needed, since a straight razor has no second blade to swap in. On a farm, a thing gets used until there is truly nothing left of it, and this rotation is simply that same rule applied to a razor. 4. A spoonful of plain dry rice in the cup where you store your razor pulls moisture out of the air, the same way it has always worked for anything a household needed to keep dry, long before anyone in my community had an electric dehumidifier. Change the spoonful once a month, since rice that has done its work for a few weeks holds all the dampness it can and needs replacing to keep working. It costs you nothing, since it is already sitting in your own kitchen. I will be honest with you, this will not make a blade last forever. How long you stretch it depends on your own water, how often you shave, and how faithfully you keep up the habit. Most men who follow all of this take a blade that once lasted 2 or 3 weeks and stretch it to 3 months, 4 months, sometimes 6. That means instead of buying a cartridge 15 or 20 times a year, you are buying it 2 or 3 times and keeping the rest of that money in your own pocket where it belongs. That is not a permanent fix. It is a maintenance habit, the same as anything else worth keeping on a working farm, and it is a great deal more than you were getting before. One word of caution: keep the mineral oil away from small hands, same as anything else in your medicine cabinet. And a freshly stropped blade is sharper than the one you set down a minute ago, so keep it up on a shelf, out of reach of little fingers if grandchildren come around your house. Tell me in the comments how long a blade has been lasting you up until tonight. What finally made you throw the last one away, and whether your water runs hard or soft where you live. I read every single one. Next time, I will show you this same care applied to every other edge in your house, your kitchen knives, your garden shears, the axe in the shed that has not held a true edge in years, taking off far less steel than most men think it takes. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Stay careful, stay steady, and remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew that a thing maintained will always outlast a thing replaced.